Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It is Wednesday, February 4th, 2026.
We are here, the mid-20s.
We are officially, firmly in the mid-20s. And I want you to just take a second to mentally look around the financial landscape right now. Because if you rewind the clock 5 years, back to the absolute chaos of 2021, the NFT craze, the volatility, the monkey pictures, things look drastically different today.
Oh, it's night and day. It's like the industry grew up, got a haircut, and put on a suit.
Right. We've moved from hype to plumbing, serious financial plumbing.
The boring stuff that actually makes things work.
Exactly. And today, we are walking past the security guards of one of the most exclusive, gate-kept industries on the planet. We are cracking open the heavy doors of the art world.
And not just to look at the pretty pictures.
No.
Yeah.
We are looking at how technology has effectively dismantled the velvet rope. We are talking about the tokenization of fine art and real-world assets.
RWAs. You're going to hear that acronym a lot.
A lot. And I want to be crystal clear right off the top. We are not talking about Bored Apes today.
No monkeys. No cartoons, we promise.
We aren't talking about JPEGs. We are talking about physical, tangible masterpieces. A $10 million Picasso. A Basquiat. A Warhol. The kind of stuff that usually hangs in a billionaire's climate-controlled bunker or, a Freeport in Geneva.
Stuff you and I are probably never going to see in person.
Right. And the promise here is massive. Taking these heavy, illiquid assets and turning them into something that fits in a digital wallet.
It's a complete restructuring of value. If you look at the trajectory of the art market for literally centuries, it was defined by opacity, by being hidden.
That was a feature, not a bug, right?
Exactly. It was the whole point. High walls, hushed conversations in back rooms at Sotheby's, and a sign on the door that effectively said, if you have to ask the price, you absolutely cannot afford it.
But today, we're looking at a market that has been cracked open by blockchain technology.
Or at least that's the claim.
That is the claim. So I've got the stack of sources here, and I have to say, this is a heavy stack. We are not just reading blog posts today.
No, we went deep on this one. This is academic.
We've got technical papers from the Cambridge Judge Business School. And I'll be honest, some of the math in there it's intense.
It's rigorous economic. They don't mess around. It's not just hand-waving.
Not at all. We have industry reports from Antier Solutions and PwC giving us the market sizing, the numbers. We have deep dives into the actual platforms, Maquis, Masterworks, Chintai. The company's really building this stuff.
The ones in the trenches.
And crucially, for 2026, we have the regulatory texts. We're going to be talking a lot about MiCA.
The European regulation, it's a game changer.
It's fully active now. Yep. So our mission today is to decode this machine. I want to understand how fractional ownership actually works. Not the marketing pitch, but the mechanics. How do you slice a painting?
Without scissors, please.
Right. And we need to talk about the phygital tech, which is a terrible word, but great tech that ensures the painting in the vault is the real one.
The bridge between the physical and the digital.
And the legal minefield. Because looking at these nodes, the US and Europe have basically divorced on how they treat this stuff.
It's a tale of two continents, totally different rule books.
Absolutely. But before we get into the legal weeds, let's just start with the problem. Because I think for most people, the art market is this abstract thing. Why did it even need tokenization? What was actually broken about the old art world?
Well, let me ask you, have you ever tried to buy a blue chip painting, a Rothko or something?
I have not. My budget is more poster from the museum gift shop.
Yeah.
Maybe a framed print if I'm feeling fancy.
Right. And that's the first friction. We call it the velvet rope economy. And intuition tells us it's about money. And it is. Of course it is. You need millions of dollars to even sit at the table.
The barrier to entry is just a wall of cash.
It is. But the sources point out something more subtle. It's not just capital, it's access, it's social capital.
The old boys club.
100%. In the traditional world, you couldn't just walk into Christie's or Sotheby's and buy the best piece in the catalog just because you had the cash. You had to be known.
What does that even mean, to be known?
It means you have a history of collecting. The dealers want to know where the art is going. They're not just selling a product. They see themselves as custodians of culture. They curate the owners as much as they curate the art.
So even if I won the lottery tomorrow, let's say I hit it big, $100 million, I couldn't just walk in and buy a Monet.
You'd struggle. You would. They'd want to vet you. You'd have to prove you're a serious collector first. You'd probably have to start with lesser-known works and build a reputation.
Wow. Okay, so there's the social barrier. But let's say you get in. You pass the velvet rope test. The sources highlight what they call the hard economic frictions. And I think people underestimate the sheer cost of doing business in the art world.
Oh, it's brutal.
I was reading the section on transaction fees, and I had to double check the numbers. I honestly thought it was a typo.
They're staggering. They really are.
We're used to, maybe a 1% fee on a stock trade, or these days, 0% on most trading apps.
Right. It's basically frictionless now.
In the art world, the intermediaries, you've got the appraisers, the galleries, the auction house premiums, the insurance, the shipping, it can exceed 20% of the sale price.
Easily. Sometimes closer to 30% when you add it all up.
So think about that. You buy a $10 million painting. You are down $2 million the second you sign the check. The very second.
Your asset has to appreciate 25% just for you to break even.
That's insane. Imagine buying a share of Apple and paying a 20% commission just to enter the trade. Nobody would do it. The market would revolt.
But in art, that was the only game in town. It was a monopoly on access, and they could charge whatever they wanted.
And that leads directly to the second problem, which is the one that really scares me as an investor. The liquidity trap.
This is the killer. This is the big one.
Explain this for us, because I think we assume that if something is worth $10 million, it's money. If I have a $10 million painting, I'm rich.
You are paper rich, but you are cash poor. Art is historically one of the most illiquid assets on the planet. It makes real estate look like high-frequency trading.
Worse than real estate. I thought that was slow.
Much worse. If you want to sell a house, it takes, a few months? Maybe a year if the market is really bad.
Sure, something like that.
To sell a masterpiece, you are completely beholden to the auction calendar. There are essentially two big seasons for the major houses, spring and autumn. That's it. If you miss the May auctions in New York, you might have to wait for the London sales in October.
Wow. So you can't just list it on Zillow for art.
Definitely not. Then you have to negotiate the consignment terms. You have to physically ship the object, which requires specialized logistics, climate control, and eye-watering insurance. It is a slow, heavy, expensive process.
So if I have a Picasso in my living room, and I suddenly have a medical emergency, or I want to buy a business, or I just need cash for whatever reason, I can't just swipe the Picasso.
Absolutely not. You are stuck. And crucially, you cannot sell 10% of your painting to pay for a new car. It is binary. You own the whole thing or you own nothing. It's all or nothing.
Until now.
Until now. This is the pivot.
This is where we pivot to the solution. Tokenization. Now, I want to be very careful here, because tokenization is a buzzword that gets thrown around by everyone from, major banks to absolute scammers.
Yeah.
Let's define it strictly according to the Cambridge papers and the industry standards we've read.
Let's do it. At its simplest level, tokenization is the process of converting ownership rights of a physical asset into digital tokens on a blockchain.
Okay, but here is the nuance that trips people up, and I admit it confused me at first.
Yeah.
We aren't talking about turning the painting into an NFT, right? We're not like burning the painting and turning it into a JPEG.
Correct. And that is a vital distinction. Please do not burn the painting. The value is in the physical object.
So break that down. Fungible versus non-fungible. Because we hear NFT and we think art, but this is different.
It is. Okay. The painting itself, the actual canvas with paint on it, that is non-fungible.
There is only one Mona Lisa.
Exactly. You cannot divide the canvas. If you cut it in half, you destroy the value. It is unique. It is indivisible. However, the ownership structure of that painting, that can be made fungible.
Like a company.
Perfect analogy. Apple, the company, is unique. It's a non-fungible entity. But a share of Apple stock, that is fungible. My share is worth exactly the same as your share. They are interchangeable. I can trade mine for yours and nothing changes.
So in this model, the painting stays unique, the painting stays safe in a vault somewhere, but we are creating millions of little shares that represent its ownership.
Precisely. And technically, to get into the weeds for a second, the asset itself might be represented by a single unique NFT, like an ERC 721 token, that acts as a digital title deed.
A digital certificate of authenticity.
Exactly. But the tokens you and I buy and trade on a marketplace, those are typically ERC20 tokens.
Which is the standard for currency-like tokens on Ethereum, the same standard used for things like stablecoins.
Right. So the investment vehicle is fungible, even if the underlying asset is unique.
And the result of this financial alchemy, is what the industry calls democratization. Which honestly sounds a bit like a marketing slogan. It sounds like something a brochure would say.
It does. It's a buzzword, for sure.
But in practice, what does it mean for the guy in Brazil or the student in Tokyo?
It means the barrier to entry collapses. You don't need $10 million. You don't need to know the guy at Christie's. You might only need $20. or $100.
So I can own a fraction of a Warhol for the price of a nice dinner.
Yes. And perhaps more importantly, you get 247 markets. Because these tokens live on a blockchain, we are moving from those sporadic, twice-a-year auction seasons to continuous trading.
So if I need liquidity at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday,
In theory, you open the app, you hit sell, and you're out. You've turned a rock-solid, immobile asset into liquid capital.
okay, that in theory is doing a lot of heavy lifting there. But we'll get to the risks and the realities of that later. For now, I want to understand the how,
The mechanics, the plumbing.
the plumbing. Because I have this mental image of someone taking a pair of scissors to a canvas, which is obviously not what's happening. But how do you actually slice a painting? Legally and technically, it seems incredibly complex.
It's a rigorous process, and frankly, it has to be. Because trust is the only thing keeping this market alive.
If the trust breaks, the value goes to zero.
Instantly. So step one is selection and valuation. You can't just tokenize anything.
Right, I can't tokenize my kid's finger painting and sell shares in it.
I mean, you could, but nobody would buy it.
Yeah.
The platforms, Masterworks, Maecenas, Chintai, they have teams of curators and data analysts. They are looking for investment-grade art.
So they're looking for the blue chips, the stuff that has a proven history of appreciation. The Picassos, the Warhols, the Basquiats.
Exactly. They authenticate it, they check the condition reports, they look at auction history, they determine a fair market value. This is the very traditional analog part of the process. You still need a human expert with a magnifying glass to say, yes, this is a real Banksy, and it's worth $5 million.
You can't blockchain your way out of needing an art historian.
Not yet. Maybe AI changes that in the future, but for now, humans are key. Now, step two. This is the part that is boring, but is absolutely critical for your safety as an investor. The legal wrapper,
The SPV.
the special purpose vehicle. Usually this is an LLC, a limited liability company. Here's how it works, and it's clever. The platform doesn't just buy the painting and put it on their own books because of liability. Instead, they create a brand new, clean company. Let's call it Picasso 1932 LLC.
Okay, a dedicated company for one painting.
That specific company, Picasso 1932 LLC, buys the painting. The painting is the only asset that company owns. It does nothing else. It has no employees, no other debts.
Why go through all that trouble? Why not just have the Masterworks platform own it?
Bankruptcy protection. It is the most important part of this. Imagine if the platform, the website you use to trade, goes bust. They run out of money, they get sued, whatever. If the platform owned the painting directly, the creditors could seize that painting to pay off the platform's debts.
And I, the token holder, would be left with nothing. My tokens would be worthless.
Exactly. But with the SPV structure, the investors own shares of the SPV, not the platform. So if the website crashes and burns, the STV and the painting inside it is legally isolated. It's a separate legal entity. It still belongs to you and the other token holders.
That's a crucial safety rail. It's like a firewall. So we have a painting inside a clean company. What's step three?
Step three is minting. We go on chain. The platform issues a set number of tokens that represent the shares in that SPV. As you said, they'll use a blockchain like Ethereum, or maybe a layer 2 like Polygon or Tezos, something that handles smart contracts well and is cost effective.
Now, you mentioned a specific standard earlier that I want to drill down on because I think it's a peek into the future of finance. ERC 3643.
Yeah, this is where it gets really high tech and frankly where it gets institutional grade.
Because usually if I have a crypto token, a Bitcoin or whatever, I can send it to anyone. I can send it to my grandma, or I can send it to a warlord in a sanctioned country. The blockchain doesn't care.
It's permissionless.
Yeah.
That's the crypto ethos. Code is law.
But that's a massive problem for securities, isn't it?
Huge problem, a regulator's nightmare. If you are selling shares in a $10 million asset, you have to follow anti-money laundering, AML, and know your customer KYC laws. You can't have anonymous North Korean hackers owning shares of a Picasso.
So how does the token stop them? How does it enforce these rules?
That's what ERC 3643 does. It's a permission token standard. The compliance rules are baked into the code of the token itself.
How does a token know who I am? That seems counterintuitive for crypto.
The token is programmed to check a centralized registry, a whitelist, before it allows any transfer. So let's say I try to send my art token to you. The smart contract pauses the transaction and effectively makes a phone call to a database. It asks, hey, has the host passed his KYC check? Have we seen his passport? Is his wallet address on the approved list?
And if I haven't uploaded my passport and gone through that whole process?
The transaction fails. It just reverts. The token literally refuses to move into your wallet.
That is wild. It's like a digital bouncer built into the money itself.
It automates compliance at the protocol level. It solves the biggest headache for institutions and regulators.
Okay, so we have the tokens. They are compliant. Step 4 is distribution, selling them to the public via an initial offering. But I want to talk about what happens after I own the token. Because in the old world, if I own a stock, I get dividends. If I own a rental property, I get rent. What do I get with art? And how does a smart contract handle the logistics of that?
This is where code replaces lawyers and accountants. Think about the logistics in the old world. Let's say we, as a group, decide to rent the painting to a museum for a fee. Or, even better, we sell the painting for a profit. And you have 5,000 investors.
Writing 5,000 checks sounds like an absolute nightmare. The administrative cost would eat up all the profit.
It's expensive, it's slow, and it's prone to error. With a smart contract, it's automatic. The contract sees the revenue, say, $1 million in USDC stablecoin hit the SPV's wallet. The code then automatically splits it 5,000 ways according to token ownership and drops the funds directly into everyone's personal wallet.
Instantly.
Instantly. No paperwork, no waiting for a check in the mail. It's just math.
And what about voting? Governance?
Same thing. This is a huge issue. Suppose a private collector comes along and offers $20 million for a $10 million painting. A huge profit.
I want to sell. That's a no-brainer.
But maybe I don't. Maybe I think it's going to 30 million. In a traditional partnership, this is a boardroom fight. It's phone calls and lawyers. In a tokenized model, the smart contract triggers a poll. Every token is a vote.
A decentralized museum board.
Exactly. You vote from your wallet. If the vote passes a certain threshold, say 75%, the sale is approved automatically. The code can even be written to execute the transfer of the title upon receiving the funds.
It sounds incredibly efficient, almost too efficient. But here is where my skepticism kicks in again, and it's a big one. We are talking about all this amazing digital infrastructure, smart contracts, tokens, blockchains, but at the end of the day, there is a physical object, a canvas with paint on it.
The real-world asset, the thing that gives it all value.
And that object has to be somewhere, in a vault. And if there's a disconnect between the digital token I'm trading and that physical object, the whole thing is a scam.
It's the Thomas Crown Affair scenario.
Exactly. What is preventing a clever thief or even a corrupt vault employee from swapping the real painting for a really, really good forgery? And we are all just trading tokens backed by a fake hanging in a vault in Geneva. How would we even know?
This is the trust problem, and you're right to be skeptical. It is the single biggest hurdle for real-world assets. You can have the most secure blockchain in the world, Bitcoin ladle security, but if the physical link is broken, the token is worthless air.
So how do we solve it? This is where I saw some real sci-fi stuff in the notes. Synthetic DNA, micro diamonds? It sounds like a James Bond movie.
It's incredible stuff. This is the Phygital Bridge. Let's look at a company called ArtClear. They've developed these highly specialized scanners that capture 7,000 data points per inch.
7,000 DPI. For context, a high-resolution photo on your phone is what, maybe 400 DPI?
Maybe, if you're lucky. 7,000 is microscopic. It's not just taking a picture. It's mapping the topography of the paint, the exact height of the brushstrokes, the unique weave of the canvas underneath, the patterns in the cracks, the craquelure.
It's a fingerprint, but for a painting.
It is a forensic digital ID. They claim the chance of a false ID or a forgery fooling the system is less than 1 in a billion.
Because you can't fake the chaos of drying paint at a microscopic level. A forger can't replicate that.
Exactly. You can paint a copy that looks identical to the naked eye, but you cannot replicate the microscopic drying patterns of oil paint from 1950. The physics is just too complex. You scan it once, create the hash, put it on chain. To verify, you just scan it again.
And then you have companies like Hephaestus Analytical. They're using AI.
Yeah, they're using AI for something called stylometry.
Stylometry.
It's the study of the artist's unconscious habits, the muscle memory. Every artist holds their brush a certain way, applies a certain pressure, has a certain flick of the wrist. It's subconscious.
So the AI looks at a brushstroke and says, that's not how Picasso flicked his wrist when he was painting a blue guitar.
Precisely. It analyzes the pressure, the angle, the speed. A forger is always self-conscious. They're trying to paint like Picasso. The AI detects that hesitation, that lack of natural flow. It's like a lie detector test for art.
That is fascinating. But what about the physical tag? Because I can scan it, but I need to make sure the object I'm scanning is the object. How do I anchor that digital fingerprint to the physical thing?
That's where you get into things like NFC chips and my personal favorite, DUST identity. They use, and I'm not kidding, diamond dust.
Of course they do. Why use a sticker when you can use diamonds?
Well, it's about entropy. It's about creating unclonable randomness. They spray a fine, invisible layer of microscopic diamonds onto a specific spot on the frame or the back of the canvas. Because the diamonds land in a completely random pattern, they create a unique constellation.
Like the stars in the sky.
Exactly. And you cannot clone a random spray of diamonds. It's physically impossible to replicate that exact pattern. You scan that pattern with a special device, it generates a unique signature, and you anchor that signature to the token on the blockchain.
So if I want to verify the painting is real, I just go to the vault, scan the diamond dust pattern. If it matches the blockchain record, it's the real deal.
It creates an immutable provenance. In the old world, provenance was a stack of paper receipts in a drawer that could be forged or lost in a fire. Now, the entire history of the artwork is anchored on-chain and tied to the very atoms of the object itself.
It's a bridge. A pretty solid one.
A digital bridge.
Still hate the word.
Yeah.
But I respect the tech. So, okay, we've got the structure, we've got the security. Does this actually work in the wild? Or is this all just a whiteboard exercise? Are people actually doing this?
Oh, absolutely. It's been working for years. We have to talk about the Warhol. That was the big one.
It's the electric chairs painting.
14 small electric chairs. This goes way back to 2018. A platform called Maecenas tokenized this painting by Andy Warhol. The valuation at the time was about $5.6 million.
And they sold shares in it.
They sold a 31.5% stake to about 100 investors. They raised $1.7 million, and it was all done in cryptocurrency Bitcoin and their own Art Day token.
So this was the hello world moment for the industry.
It was the proof of concept. It was clunky, it was early, but it proved you could fractionalize a blue chip asset using blockchain and that people would actually buy it. But that was 2018. I mean, that was the Stone Age in crypto time.
Right. A totally different era.
If we fast forward to the 2024-2025 period, the market shifted gears. We moved from these one-off experiments to full-blown institutions. Look at the TPAT initiative.
TPAT.
The Premier Art Token. This was launched by Premier Art Holdings and Chintai. They didn't just tokenize one painting, they launched a $50 million tokenized fine art fund.
Okay, now that's a key shift. Moving from I own a piece of this one specific painting to I own a share of a diversified portfolio of paintings.
It's safer. Much, much safer. It manages risk. It's what institutions want. If you own one painting and that specific artist falls out of favor or, gets canceled for something they did in the 70s, you could lose a lot of money.
But if you own a fund with 50 paintings,
you're diversified. One piece doing poorly doesn't sink the ship. It's a much more stable, mature investment product.
But let's pause here, because there is a really interesting economic argument in that Cambridge Judge Business School paper that I want to unpack. They talk about something called the convenience yield. And this hits on the philosophical problem of owning art you can't actually see.
This is a brilliant piece of analysis. They call it the viewing problem.
Break it down. What is a convenience yield?
Okay, so financial assets have financial returns. A stock gives you dividends and appreciation. A bond gives you interest or a yield. What does art give you?
Well, appreciation, hopefully. And it looks nice on the wall.
Exactly. The dividend of art is beauty. It's the pleasure of looking at it. It's the social status of having it in your home. Economists call this non-financial return the convenience yield or the aesthetic dividend.
But in the tokenization model we've been describing.
In the tokenization model, the painting is in a dark, climate-controlled vault in Delaware or Switzerland. Nobody sees it. Ever.
So that value, that dividend of beauty is effectively zero. It's lost.
Correct. The Cambridge researchers argue that this actually squanders the value of the asset. You are destroying welfare. You are taking a beautiful object created for human enjoyment and hiding it in a box. It's economically inefficient.
So what's the solution? How do we get that value back if 5,000 people own it? We can't pass it around like a timeshare. Can't have the Warhol for the weekend.
That would be a logistical and insurance nightmare. The solution they propose, and what we are now seeing platforms adopt, is renting the art.
Renting it out to museums.
You keep the painting in the secure ownership of the SPV, but you lease it to museums, public galleries, or even corporate lobbies. They pay a rental fee to display the art.
So you replace the aesthetic dividend for one person with a financial dividend for everyone.
Exactly. You turn the convenience yield into actual cash flow. The token holders get a check or, a USDC deposit every quarter from the rental income. The public gets to see the art. Everybody wins.
That makes the model welfare improving. You get the potential appreciation of the art plus a yield. It turns a passive, expensive-to-hold asset into a productive one.
It's actually better than the traditional model for a sole owner. In the old world, art costs you money every year to hold insurance storage. In this model, the art pays you to hold it.
That is a massive shift. But we should also clarify intellectual property rights here, because I think people get confused by the NFT culture of 2021. If I buy a token of a Warhol, can I print that Warhol on a t-shirt and sell it? Can I make a coffee mug?
Generally, no. A hard no. And this is a huge misconception. Buying a token almost always grants you an economic interest in the underlying physical asset. It does not grant you commercial IP rights.
You are a shareholder, not the copyright holder.
Exactly. You are betting on the price of the physical object going up. You are not buying the right to exploit the image. Contrast this with something like the Bored Ape Yacht Club, where buying the token often did give you broad commercial rights. You could open a burger joint with your ape.
But don't try to open a Warhol burger joint.
You will get sued into oblivion. The Andy Warhol Foundation will crush you.
Got it. So don't start your merch line just yet. Now we have to talk about the rules of the game. We are in 2026 and the regulatory landscape has finally crystallized. But it looks very, very different depending on which side of the Atlantic you are on.
It really does. It's a fascinating divergence in regulatory philosophy.
Let's start with Europe. Because looking at the notes, Europe seems to have gotten its act together and provided some real clarity.
Europe has really taken the lead with MiCA the markets in crypto assets regulation. By 2025 and into 2026, this is fully active across the EU. It's the law of the land.
And what does MiCA say about our sliced-up paintings? Are they art or are they finance?
Well, MiCA classifies everything very strictly. You have asset reference tokens, e-money tokens, utility tokens. But for art, the key is the so-called NFT loophole, or rather, the lack of one for these products.
Go on.
MiCA generally excludes true, unique, one-of-one NFTs from its most stringent rules. If you sell one unique digital artwork, MiCA says, okay, that's more like art, not finance.
But we are fractionalizing. We're creating thousands of identical tokens.
Right, and MiCA is very clear. It states that if a token is issued in a large series or is fractionalized, it is likely a financial instrument or a crypto asset that falls under the regulation.
So if I chop a painting into 10,000 pieces, Europe says that's not an NFT anymore, that's a security.
Essentially, yes, it requires strict authorization. You have to publish a detailed white paper, which is like a prospectus for an IPO. You have to be authorized as a CSP, a crypto asset service provider, which involves meeting capital requirements and governance standards.
It sounds like a lot of paperwork, a lot of hoops to jump through.
It is, but it provides certainty. You know the rules, you follow the checklist, you can do business. And there is one other big rule in Europe, the TFR.
The Transfer of Funds Regulation.
Also known as the travel rule. This effectively kills financial anonymity for these assets. It means service providers, the platforms, must collect and exchange personal data of the senders and recipients for every transaction. If you send your art token to someone, your ID basically travels with it.
Which makes sense given the high values involved. Regulators are terrified of money laundering through art.
And they should be. It's a classic technique. Now, compare that clarity, even if it is heavy-handed, to the situation in the US.
The Wild West. Or maybe the litigious West is a better term.
The SEC has been active, to put it mildly.
That's a polite way to put it. They sue first and ask questions later.
The U.S. approach relies almost entirely on a piece of case law called the Howey test.
Which is from, what, the 1940s? It feels ancient.
1946. It's a Supreme Court case about investments in Florida orange groves.
So we are regulating digital assets in 2026 using a law about orange groves from 1946.
It sounds absurd on its face.
It sounds absurd, but the legal principles are surprisingly durable. The test asks 4 basic questions. Is it an investment of money?
Yes.
In a common enterprise?
Yes, the SPV.
With an expectation of profit?
Obviously.
Derived from the efforts of others?
Yeah.
And that is the one. That's the kicker.
That's the tricky one, because as a token holder, I'm not doing anything.
You're totally passive. The SEC argues, and they've won on this in court, that if a platform is selecting the art, authenticating it, storing it, marketing it, and building a secondary market for it, those are the efforts of others. You, the investor, are relying on the platform to make you money.
Which makes it a security. Full stop. which makes it an investment contract and therefore a security. So platforms in the US like Masterworks can't just launch a token. They have to file their offerings with the SEC, typically under Regulation A, which is like a mini IPO. It's expensive and slow, but it keeps them compliant.
I recall some cases where platforms got in trouble specifically because of how they marketed things,
Yeah.
like promising future royalties.
Yes, specifically cases like Impact Theory and Stoner Cats. The SEC jumped on them because their marketing materials heavily implied that the team was going to build the brand or create a TV show that would make the tokens go up in value. That's a classic example of efforts of others.
So the lesson for platforms in the US is be boring. Be very, very boring in your marketing. Don't promise the moon. Just sell the shares.
The impact of all this is that the US market is defined by enforcement rather than clear rules, which creates a very high friction environment. Platforms have to be hyper-compliant. KYCML is absolutely mandatory. If you want to play in this $13+ billion market in the US, you have to play by banking rules. The old crypto anarchist dream is completely dead in this sector.
Let's shift gears to the risks, because we've painted a pretty rosy picture here. Liquidity, access, Picasso's for everyone. But what can go wrong? Because things can always go wrong.
Plenty. And these are not trivial risks.
One thing that stuck out to me in the notes was the reconstitution problem. It sounds like a sci-fi movie title. The reconstitution.
It does, doesn't it? But it's a very practical and very difficult problem. It's the Humpty Dumpty problem. We've taken a beautiful whole painting and digitally broken its ownership into 10,000 pieces. What if someone wants to buy the whole painting back? What if a museum or a billionaire collector says, we need that Warhol for our permanent collection? They can't hang 10,000 tokens on the wall. They need the physical canvas.
So how do you get it back from the 10,000 people who own it?
Yeah.
Especially if some of them have lost their private keys, or they've died and their family doesn't know they own it, or they just aren't paying attention to their email.
You need a reconstitution mechanism written into the smart contract from day one. Usually, it works like a squeeze-out merger in the corporate world. If a valid, bona fide buyout offer comes in above a certain price, a governance vote is triggered.
And what's the threshold for that vote?
It varies, but it has to be a supermajority, maybe 75% or as high as 90% of the token holders. If that supermajority votes to sell, the smart contract forces the sale for everyone.
It forces it, even if I voted no.
Yes. Even if you voted no, if the majority says yes, your tokens are programmatically burned, destroyed, and the cash value of your share is deposited in your wallet. The buyer gets the unencumbered title to the physical painting.
That feels aggressive, kind of undemocratic. But I guess it's necessary. Otherwise, one guy with $20 worth of tokens could hold a $10 million painting hostage.
Exactly. It prevents holdouts. But getting that governance right is incredibly hard. What if nobody votes? What if people are just apathetic?
The apathy problem. If I own $20 of a painting, am I really going to bother logging into a governance portal to read a complex 10-page buyout offer? Probably not.
Which is why some protocols are experimenting with things like treating non-votes as yes votes after a certain time, or they lower the quorum requirements. But that introduces new risks of a hostile takeover. It's a really delicate balance.
Then there's platform risk. We touched on this with the SPV, but I think it bears repeating because it's so important.
It really does. The SPV protects your legal title to the painting, but who holds the keys to the vault? Who pays the insurance premiums every year?
The platform. The CASP.
Right. The crypto asset service provider. So if the platform goes bankrupt, the SPV still owns the painting legally, but who is paying the security guards? Who is paying for the climate control in the warehouse?
You could end up with a zombie asset.
Exactly. You own it, but it's stuck in administrative limbo. You might have to organize with 5,000 other strangers on Discord to hire a lawyer to get access to the warehouse in Delaware. It would be an absolute mess.
And finally, market risk. I think this is where the in theory from earlier comes back to bite us. Just because something is tradable 24/7 doesn't mean there is a buyer tool 24/7.
Correct. Liquidity is not guaranteed. Especially for these niche assets, you can have what we call thin markets. You might see a price on the screen. Last trade was $100, but that could have been one token. If you try to sell 1,000 tokens, you might crash the price to $50.
Because there aren't enough buy orders on the books at that moment. It's called slippage.
Exactly. Art tokens can be volatile, much more volatile than the physical art market, which moves like a glacier. Tokens move like like crypto.
So don't put your rent money into a Basquiat token expecting to be able to pull it out on Friday to pay your landlord.
Definitely not. This is long-term, high-risk, alternative investment territory.
So looking ahead, what are the trends shaping 2026 and beyond? We mentioned DeFi. That seems to be the next big step.
DeFi integration is the next frontier. This is where it gets really financial and, honestly, where the real power of this technology gets unlocked. Imagine using your art tokens as collateral for a loan.
Walk me through that. How would that work?
Okay, so you hold, say, $5,000 worth of a Picasso token. You need cash for an emergency, but you don't want to sell the token because you think it's going to go up in value, and you don't want to trigger a tax event capital gains tax.
Right.
Instead, you go to a decentralized lending protocol and you lock your token in a smart contract. It acts as collateral.
Like a digital pawn shop.
A digital, automated, over-collateralized pawn shop. The protocol then lets you borrow stablecoins USDC or Eurocoin against the value of your art. You pay interest on the loan. If you pay it back, the smart contract releases your tokens back to you.
And if the value of the art crashes and my loan becomes under-collateralized,
You get liquidated. The smart contract automatically sells your art tokens on the open market to pay back the debt. It's ruthless, but it's efficient. It unlocks liquidity without forcing a sale. It's how the wealthy have always operated. They borrow against their assets, they don't sell them. Now, anyone can do it with a few clicks.
that is powerful. And we are seeing the big banks get involved too, right? This isn't just crypto startups anymore.
We're seeing massive institutionalization. Citi put out a report forecasting that the market for tokenized assets could reach $4 to $5 trillion by 2030. BlackRock is actively entering the space. When the big traditional players get involved, the game completely changes. They bring legitimacy, but also their own set of rules.
And one final note on the money itself. You mentioned that algorithmic stablecoins are basically dead in Europe.
Under MiCA, yes. They are effectively banned for large-scale use. The Terra Luna crash in 2022 scared every regulator straight. The market has shifted entirely toward fully reserved asset-backed stablecoins tokens, backed one-to-one by real fiat currency in audited bank accounts.
And that provides the stability needed for these art markets to function. You can't trade a stable long-term asset like art against a volatile, unbacked currency.
Exactly. You need a stable yardstick to measure value.
So what does this all mean? When we zoom out, we have taken art, something deeply human, emotional, physical, and we've turned it into lines of code. We've turned it into financial instruments that trade in milliseconds.
We have bridged the high culture world of fine art with the high-speed world of digital finance. We've brought transparency where there was opacity. We've brought liquidity where there was none. And we've opened the door for millions of people to participate in some small way in a market that was previously locked away for the ultra-wealthy.
It is a bridge, absolutely. But here's a thought to leave you with, and maybe it's a bit provocative.
Go for it.
If digital tokens allow us to own art without ever seeing it, without ever standing in front of it and feeling that emotional connection, are we really democratizing culture? Or are we just turning masterpieces into lines on a spreadsheet? Are we just gambling on paint?
It's the ultimate question, isn't it? Can we have the financial gain without losing the soul of the art?
And maybe that Cambridge paper has the answer. If we do rent those viewing rights out effectively, if your investment portfolio eventually pays for your museum ticket, maybe that's the balance.
Maybe that's the win-win. You get the financial return and the world gets to see the art.
Something to mull over.
Yeah.
That's it for this deep dive into the tokenization of art.
See you in the next deep dive.
See you then.